Evolutionary.org podcast coming your way. Episode 459. Stevesmi and the Ricky B. Rock. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, guys? How's everybody doing out there?
Today we have 6 topics for the Q&A. It's going to be a really good show. So let's get right to it so we don't waste any more time. First one is use of pharmaceuticals such as metformin and telmisartan. And so I'll start with metformin. And what metformin does, if you guys know anybody who is a type 2 diabetic, a lot of them do use metformin because they don't want to inject insulin. So metformin is a very effective drug. It's a wonderful drug that allows diabetics to take something where they're not, messing around with needles, they're not messing around with these hormones, having to inject hormones after their meals and stuff. So metformin helps them basically control their blood sugar. So in the way that metformin works, obviously, is, when a diabetic eats a meal, because they have a dysfunctional pancreas, we're talking type 2 diabetics versus type 1 diabetics. With type 1 diabetic, it's more of a situation where their pancreas doesn't function at all. And a lot of times, they get diagnosed with it. And it's something, it could be something genetic. It could be something where their pancreas isn't functioning. But a type 2 diabetic will be in a situation where, a lifetime of poor diet choices, poor lifestyle choices will lead their pancreas just to stop functioning correctly, where they eat a meal and their pancreas doesn't spit out insulin to drop their blood sugar back down. So metformin is a really good drug for that reason. Now, the downside to metformin is, and a lot of diabetics that I know don't want to take it. It's because the side effects and also the different things that it doesn't mesh with. It can be a really big deal if you take metformin with another drug, or you take it with alcohol or something like that. So you really have to watch out. And then a lot of people too, they complain about issues with gut issues when they take metformin. I know someone I know, they had complain about diarrhea. There's constipation that can come out. It can really throw off your bowel movements. It can give you a lot of gas. It can give you bloating and all this other stuff. There's also things with dizziness and being tired and lethargic. So there's all kinds of side effects associated with it. But why are we talking about metformin? Metformin in bodybuilding. There's a lot of bodybuilders out there. They'll take metformin. I've used it a couple times myself. It did absolutely nothing for me. But I think what happens is, and the reason metformin is used at the pro bodybuilding level is they're running so much human growth hormone that using metformin with the human growth hormone kind of makes sense, because it can kind of help control your blood sugar issues. So I don't think it has a place in if you're a normal gym rat. I don't think it has a place for you. But if you're at the professional level, I can see where it has a place, just like insulin, just like how insulin has a place at the professional level. So my advice, if you're listening to this, and 99% of you that are just regular gym rats, you like to, work out, you like to use steroids here and there, don't mess with metformin, because anything like this, any type of drug like this that you're throwing in your body that can fuck with your bowel movements is not something that I recommend. Rick, what are your thoughts?
So metformin is been legitimately used by bodybuilders to improve the way they look. There have been studies on metformin and fat loss. Some studies have shown metformin to be very favorable in fat loss. Other studies have said it's not as good for fat loss unless you're like obese and in danger of developing diabetes. Metformin usually is given to guys with type 2 diabetes, even though some people with type 1 have also been prescribed metformin along with the insulin. but for the most part, is usually a type 2 diabetes drug. Could you as a bodybuilder benefit from metformin? Look, the only guys who should be using, or I think should even think about using metformin for bodybuilding purposes are if one, your doctor is telling you got to take metformin, and then you also happen to bodybuild. So there you go. And two, if you're competing and you have a coach and it's part of your coach's regimen. I remember one particular girl I went out with for a while. Her coach had her on metformin going up to the show, and this girl won a lot of stuff. So if you have a coach and he's telling you how to administer it, or if your doctor says you need to be taking it, then by all means. But if not, I'm one of those guys where I don't like taking a lot of pharmaceuticals for fat loss, for weight loss. I think taking steroids and SARMs to preserve your muscle mass as you're dropping body fat, pretty good. That's very hard, unnatural to do. But to just take a drug to help speed along fat loss when you could just eat less and train a little bit harder, I'd rather go with a little bit more pain, keeping the fork away from my mouth and getting rid of calories that way, than, add a drug for fat loss. And when I do take something for fat loss, I'll usually take supplements, over-the-counter supplements. The over-the-counter supplements that we have today for fat loss, over-the-counter supplements, hear me out, guys, that are available over-the-counter today are very, very strong. And you don't really need to look deep into pharmaceuticals and synthetics to get anything better than what you have out there today, if you combine it with good diet and good responsible eating. So taking a good stimulant to help, keep you going, even on a caloric deficit, to help curb appetite some, like my N2Burn product, you guys can pick up from need2buildmuscle.com, or also taking a nutrient partitioner instead of something like metformin. And to Slin, metformin, you need about 500. Some guys will take 700, 1,000 milligrams a day. I make a product called Entuslin, and yeah, I mean it takes about 7 different ingredients all coming together to create a better response for guys looking for fat loss and an improvement in the way they look. And it's a loaded product, and you have to take about 2 to 3 capsules before each meal, and it works great. If you've ever used metformin for bodybuilding purposes, not diabetes, and you've been curious about it, Entuslin is what you need. It's probably the main reason I've never really messed with metformin, but I still take advantage of the insulin pathway for fat loss, is taking the Entuslin. You go to n2slin.com. You go right there. I'm going to note it in the description of this podcast, and you could try it out, man. Entuslin is a great product. It's not stimulant, and it works kind of the same way. Metformin, on the studies, it seems like it really helps people that are overweight and close to being almost diabetic, and it might show an improvement for those people in fat loss. There are other studies that are tried to say it's just not a great drug for that purpose. I think if you're curious or if you're thinking about losing body fat through the insulin pathways, through regulating sugar kind of in your blood a little bit, I think Entuslin is the better way to go. I wouldn't use metformin unless you have a coach and you're getting on stage and that's what he has you using, and you guys are, you're hardcore about your drugs, or the doctor says you need to be taking. I think those are the only 2 scenarios I think anyone should really mess with metformin. For everybody else, Entuslin, that's a product you need.
So the other one we're going to talk about, Micardis, or telmisartan, and this is a blood pressure medication. And the way it works in the body, it's an angiotensin 2 receptor antagonist, and it's an angiotensin receptor blocker, ARB. And what happens is Momster and I do the hardcore podcast. We've done a lot of these guys who are dropping dead. They're dropping dead in their 40s. They're getting heart attacks, and they're living in a fantasy world. When you're that big and you're using all these steroids and you're shortening your life quite a bit. And the organ that you're putting the most pressure on is your heart. And what happens is your heart just can't take it anymore. And you get blockages and you get all kinds of issues. So, this drug is one of these things that these pro bodybuilders, just like the metformin, some of these pro bodybuilders at high levels, they're using this. They're using 20, they're using 40, they're using 60 milligrams a day to help them with, the cardiovascular disease or reduce their chance of stroke. So they're taking they're doing it. They want to prevent an issue from happening. They want to prevent, a heart attack down the line. It could be months from now, it could be years from now, it could be 20 years from now. But all this is taking effect. It also can help with insulin sensitivity. It can help with cognitive function, obviously cholesterol levels, HDL cholesterol levels. So these numbers, they get all wacky when you're running a bunch of steroids and you're huge in your bodybuilding. So that's why they mess with it. Anything you want to add on this one, Rick? It's not something that you should need. If you're using anabolic steroids responsibly, it's not something you should need. But I can't fault someone for wanting to take a proactive, doing something proactive like this. If you're a guy who's really, really, really big, you're a really, really big guy, and you're using a lot of anabolic steroids, it might be a good idea to sit down with your doctor and discuss it. And discuss, hey, maybe I should take something that can prevent an event from happening, because preventing a stroke or a heart attack is a lot better for you than actually waiting till you have a heart attack and then having to have surgery, because it's not the heart attack that is the worst part of a heart attack. It's the aftermath. Because after you have a heart attack, it can take you a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, where you just don't have the energy you did before. And you're not going to be able to work out the way you did before. And you're definitely not going to be able to use anabolic steroids the way you did before. So don't wait till you get the heart attack, guys. You need to take care of your heart, and you need to talk to your doctor about this and really get your blood work tested, get your heart tested. Once you get over 40, 45, 50, you really need to look at your heart, because you're going to drop dead at 60, all because you didn't take a proactive approach. Anything you want to add to this, Rick, or you want to move on?
One drug that a lot of bodybuilders take that is actually turned out after years of research, it's actually good for your heart, is Cialis, apparently. Obviously, when you overdo anything, it could be detrimental, but apparently Cialis, when used in moderation over time, it's supposed to really help your heart health and help decrease the probability of you having heart problems as you get older. I just wanted to close that in. I thought that was interesting. And
why would Cialis be like that, but Viagra not?
Well, apparently Cialis is the one that came up in the study, but they suspect there's all of these drugs, from tadalafil to sildenafil, vardenafil. All of these are actually apparently helping your heart somehow. But the one that I came across, this was a while back, was specifically Cialis that they were looking at in the study. So apparently that's this drug that could help with some heart issues. Now, as far as telmisartan, there's some telmisartan. How do you pronounce this drug? I can't, with my accent, I haven't trouble pronouncing it. How do you pronounce it, Steve?
Buddy, I have no clue. I think it's telmisartan. I read this stuff. I don't really talk about it with people. So
gotcha. Well, I'll make sure to get the right spelling on the description of the podcast. But guys, there are a lot of different drugs outside of the steroids and the SARMs and the peptides that we talk about that are being used in one way or another in bodybuilding. And this appears to be one of those. We usually don't get into some of these drugs that Steve and I don't personally mess with or have experience with, because look, at the end of the day, all of you listening, you're just trying to lose body fat and gain muscle mass. We are discussing here several dozens of different options between steroids, SARMs, and peptides that you can take to achieve those two goals, which is put on some muscle mass and burn body fat. Some of these drugs, like telmisartan, like metformin, it may just not be necessary. They might have some effect on guys that are below 10% body fat going up to a show, or maybe really unhealthy people that are obese and already are having problems with insulin resistance and their heart and whatnot. But a healthy individual, middle to lower teens in body fat, just trying to get a little bit leaner with a little bit more muscle and stay healthy year round. A lot of these drugs just are completely unnecessary and maybe not for you to be messing with. So we usually don't cover these much. And these are two that we haven't, I don't think, covered ever on the podcast. And we just mentioned today, but that's kind of our thinking on it, guys. It's just kind of unnecessary, especially for fat loss. Especially talk to me about fat loss, because you could just eat less calories. Fuck the MP and metformin and all this other stuff to just to lose fat quicker. How about you just eat less calories? Okay, you are bulking and cutting because you're going into a show, so you're cutting, you have a schedule. Okay, I can see you having to utilize drugs, and you have a coach that's got experience helping people with these drugs. I can see you have some justification to take some of this more advanced chemistry, because you know, dialing back 1 or 2 points in your body fat percentage at the time that you're on stage could be the difference between winning or losing. So I can maybe see that in some of those guys. But just Bob going to the office that got a little bit fat during the winter, the holidays, and is trying to shed a little bit of body fat. No, Bob, you don't need metformin. You don't need clenbuterol. You don't need DMP, Bob. You don't need any of these crazy fat loss drugs to just lose body fat. You're not on a schedule. You're not going to be judged. Oh, you just take your time, eat less, more cardio, definitely pump some anabolics so you don't lose muscle mass as you're cutting the fat, but really cut the fat with training and dialing back on your calories. And then you don't need any of these real crazy drugs. Insulin is a great product to take before every meal. It's definitely going to give you some of the better benefits that people who are looking at metformin for fat loss is going to give you the better benefits of it without any of the other unwanted sides, because metformin is really a drug being given to folks with type 2 diabetes. So yeah, I mean, that was my last thing I had to say on it.
The next one we're going to talk about is adjusting your training coming off cycle. So I'm going to let you get first crack at this one, Rick, since you're on a roll. How do you adjust your training when you're coming off a cycle?
I think if you do it right, your training will just adjust itself. Meaning you'll be at the gym, you'll get in there, you'll try to do your regular workouts with your regular weights and your regular repetitions, and you just won't be able to. You know, you'll reach failure earlier on than you did at the middle of your cycle. You're going to be way more tired in between sets. You might need a little bit more of a rest in between sets, and you're just going to notice it. You know, unless it, you know, it's been your first 1 or 2 cycles, and you are and you've been training for a really long time. Most of the time, you're going to notice a noticeable difference between your strength, your recovery time in between sets, your recovery in between workouts, and your output. There's that. I mean, it's the reason these things are illegal, guys, in every sport out there, right? You're going to notice a difference. So if you're really doing it right and you PCT properly and all that good stuff, you'll be just as motivated, just as ready to get in the gym as you always were on cycle. I mean, you'll be fine to get in there. You using my HC Generate product during your post-cycle therapy, you're going to stay motivated. You're going to stay ready to go. But when you're finally pumping out repetitions, pumping out volume, putting an intensity into your workouts, you're going to notice the lack of the androgens. You're less repetitions, reaching failure earlier, maybe having a take a few pounds off the plates, maybe needing a little bit extra time in between sets, maybe being way more sore after a workout for days longer than you were otherwise. Your training adjusts itself, and you shouldn't, you know, maybe I've said something different before, you know, adjust your training when you're off, and it may not be a bad idea, but the kind of mental state that I'm in right now, I think you just hit it hard, keep bursting through. and your training will adjust itself when you're not on the androgens, but you should still try to push, make it then a mental workout, more so than just a physical one, a mental workout to get the same kind of reps, get the same kind of intensity and weight and volume of a workout. And even when you're off the sauce, and now you're not just working your body, you're working your mental state as well. And maybe you should try to continue pumping hard like you were on the sauce, but just maybe accept that your body's going to give in. It's going to be not as strong as you were mid-cycle. So that's all I got to say about that.
It depends on what you're running, but I mean, let's say you're running trend, you get to the level and you want to run trend, which is a good 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th cycle. Okay. You don't want to run trend the first 3 cycles you run, obviously. Okay. And this is one of the reasons you shouldn't, because when you run trend, your strength is going to go crazy. So then when you come off and that trend starts trickling out of your system, whatever you're able to do on the trend, you hit your personal record on the trend. Let's say you hit your personal record of 350 pound on the bench press on trend. Before the trend, you could do maybe 310, 315. So you went from 310, 315 to 350, and you're like, damn, I'm strong as hell. Well, when you come off the trend, that trend's not going to be in your system anymore. So your strength is going to drop. So if you go on there and load up 350 pounds on the bench, you're not going to be able to do it. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, like Rick said, you have to adjust to it. You have to understand that. So this is why when you weight train, and we're going to talk about weight training and, a little later on in the show, we're going to get more into weight training, but it's a good idea when you're weight training to start at a lower weight, a certain amount of reps, 6 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps, 12 reps, whatever. And you can kind of gauge how many can I do. And any person, okay, I understand some people out there, they don't have that brain functionality, okay? And I'm not saying it's not as an insult, but what I mean by that is some people just can't follow what they're doing. So I say to you, if you're like that, okay, for whatever reason, you're not aware, like you should be able to know how much can I deadlift, how much can I bench, how much can I squat. You should know all this. How much can I curl? You should already know this, that I can curl this much weight for this many reps. It should be ingrained in your brain. But let's say you're one of those people, you just can't remember these types of things. Maybe you can't remember numbers. Some people just can't. It doesn't make you dumb. It just, some people are more talented in different ways. So in those situations, write it down. You should be able to write this shit down. This way you can kind of track, hey, when I'm on trend, I can do 350 for 3 reps. When I'm off trend, I can do 315 for 3 reps. So now when you come off the trend, you should realize, hey, I shouldn't be loading. I should warm up. I shouldn't be throwing on 300 pounds on the bench right away. I should probably throw on 250 and work my way up and see, do I lose everything and go back to 315, or do I lose half of it and now I can do 325, 330? So you really should know this shit before you're going to do it. It just boggles the mind when I see, and let's be honest, Rick, it's usually the young male demographic in the gym. They're usually they're in groups of 3, maybe 4 guys, and they throw on a bunch of weight on the bench press or on a squat or whatever. And they just look like fools because they can't do the weight. And it's just like, dude, you need to put the weight that you that you can do. You don't just throw on a random amount of weight. This doesn't make sense to me. But look, they're new. They might be new to it. They might be one of these guys that show up a couple times a month. They may have got in as a guest, for a session or something, but they're not serious weight training. But maybe they will be. And one of the things, if you think about it, if you're one of those people that I'm describing, you go in there in a group and you guys just clown around and you throw in a bunch of weight that you don't know if you can do, you need to take a step back and be like, you know what? I have to build consistency at a lower weight and then work my way up. And then, like exactly what Rick said, when you come off steroids, you will adjust to your strength. You'll adjust to your volume, because all that stuff is going to change when you come off. This mentality that, well, I'm trying, I can do 350. I'm going to come off. I'm still going to be able to do 350. It doesn't work like that unless you're at such a low level that you have so much space to improve. But if you built a base and stuff, obviously you're not going to be able to do that much weight, nor should you want to do that much weight, because your body has to get a break from that heavy type of weight training. So it really is a good idea. That's why you don't use trend your first few cycles, because if you do, you're probably going to get injured. You're probably going to get injured for that reason, because you're going to do way too much weight than what you should be doing, that your body's used to. So this kind of ties in the next one, Rick. I know you want to chime in on this one. Talk about CNS, and is CNS a real thing? Central nervous system, how it affects during your workout, all that good stuff.
You lead on this one. I didn't even understand the question fully when I saw it written down. So you go ahead and lead, and I'll add to anything you say.
Okay, so that goes. Yeah, so central nervous system, we hear this word thrown around a lot. And that's the part of the nervous system that involves your brain and spinal cord. So when you're really like working out hard, you get these terms that get thrown out, adrenal fatigue. I'm sure you guys heard of that name before. And that's where you get a lot of fatigue, and you lose motivation and all that good stuff. So a lot of that, though, isn't from overtraining. A lot of that just is from, it could be diet related. It could be a lack of sleep. It could be a lot of things. So when you're tying in steroids to this, when you tie in steroids, sometimes the steroids can kind of throw your sleep patterns off, and they can kind of cause you to be fatigued. And we hear this a lot with guys. There's like, I'm on steroids and I'm fatigued all day, but then when I go work out, I've got energy all of a sudden. And then when I leave the gym, my energy is back down again. So yeah, that's one of the things that happens when people use steroids. But yes, there is such a thing as overtraining. I mean, I go back to what I always tell people. When you're a younger guy, you always think, I'm invincible. I can go in there and work out 6-7 times a week and nothing's going to happen to me. But here's the thing. It's not necessarily the whole adrenal fatigue that causes the issue. It's more of your body is made of flesh and soft tissues, and you have discs in your spine, and these things get injured. That's why you see professional athletes, they have an off season. They don't hammer their bodies year round. They have an off season, then they start a mini camp, then they're in their shorts, then they do a training camp, then they do a preseason, and then they do the regular season. And a lot of players aren't even at their best when the regular season starts. Some of the players, it takes them mid-season until they start really getting good. So, I mean, that's the way it works with our body. So I don't really buy the whole, central nervous system and adrenal fatigue and all this stuff too. And it's something that, people throw around a lot, but it's not really something that you have to worry about. I would say before any of that happens, you're going to start blowing out this, and you're going to start having joint issues and inflammation in your joints and other issues like that before you have to start worrying about that. See what I'm saying? So if you start noticing, hey, my joints feel inflamed and all this stuff, then that's probably a signal that, yeah, you're overtraining. But it's not like, oh my God, my CNS is fatigued, So Rick, chime in on this a little bit and we'll move on.
I don't know. You said a lot of stuff. I don't know what angle to take on this one, other than, I mean, when you're training and lack of oxygen causes a buildup of lactic acid in the muscles. It's produced because the muscles are breaking down sugars to create energy. And that lactic acid buildup does trigger nerve endings to signal pain. And there's definitely an effect, direct effect from physical training on your nervous system. Part of what you're doing when you warm up before you train is you're warming up your spinal cord and your brain for the training. So those effects of lactic acid on on your nervous system is something that as you train more and as you become a better athlete, as you gain better cardio, they're less and less. So yeah, you're going to feel that kind of exhaustion and tiredness and pain, that pain of kind of being tired and being done with the set of the exercise. It's going to come on a lot earlier if you're not well trained and if you haven't exercised enough, so well later. I mean, that's the only thing, little piece of information I can add to all of this. I'm not sure I have much more to add on in the way this question is kind of formulated. So yeah, let's move on.
Next one is for you. Top 5 health supplements that you recommend on a steroid cycle. So,
oh yeah, great. I mean, basically, I've been, as you guys know, been taking steroids for some 20 years, on and off, and I've always taken natural products to go along with my steroid cycle to just get the absolute best results I can from my cycle and to not risk my health in the short or longer term. So I use a lot of natural ingredients. And over the years, all of these ingredients became basically my stack to take with steroid cycle. All of these ingredients became my own products that I made into a whole brand for all you guys out there that are using steroids to take. So the number one is always N2Guard. N2Guard is great for your liver, is great for your kidneys, heart health, blood pressure, all that good stuff. If you take N2Guard, you're going to see some really good looking blood results on all of your blood tests. So N2Guard would be the first one. And that I would take while I'm taking injectables, while I'm on orals, when I'm off of everything. There's a cheaper option to N2Guard I sell in my store called 3D Multivitamin. And that one's great, very inexpensive. It doesn't have some of the organ support stuff because it's mainly a vitamin to take when you are not training that hard, when you're not on steroids and training like crazy. You take this multivitamin. It's a good multivitamin just for someone who trains hard, is an athlete, but is not taking steroids at the moment. And if you are taking steroids, then you step up to N2Guard. And that's probably my number one, is that multivitamin, multimineral. I don't think anyone should shoot any steroids unless they're taking a multivitamin, multimineral and taking care of just any possible deficiencies in your system before you even start adding something else on there like anabolic steroids. Second to that is N2 Generate or HC Generate. You guys can go to hcgenerate.com. That is my libido booster. It keeps my semen volume up. It keeps my libido up. It keeps my nuts from shrinking. I mean, HC Generate, N2 Generate is really the number 2 product anyone should take while on steroids, even while they're off during PCT. It's just great, awesome for, the one thing we care about, guys, which is, libido and being able to, lay the pipe down. What's the point of getting lean and mean and getting a lot of attention if you can't lay the pipe down right? So N2 Generate, HC Generate, always been the one that helps me make sure that I'm laying the pipe down right. So number one, always multivitamin, multimineral, in this case, N2Guard for steroid users too. Something that makes sure your libido is always strong, no matter what you're taking, whether you're on or coming off of the steroids or been natural for months. N2 Generate. Number 3 in that stack has always been N2Slin. Go to N2Slin.com. N2Slin, just take it before every single meal. It's just a nice, easier way to put on more muscle mass, make it easier for you to lose body fat, and really do it in a nice, kind of easy, effective way by using the insulin pathway. You can take N2Slin by itself. You could take it during cycle, off cycle, whatever. You can take it for months on end. It's just a great, great product. It kind of helps shift that balance in the way your body uses carbohydrates to, like, if you were one of these guys, really great genetics that got really big and muscular off of carbohydrates, like some dudes out there we probably know. So definitely N2Slin would be the number 3 product. Number 4 product from my store that I would definitely take every day, and I kind of do, is cortisol. I'm not selling cortisol, the banned nutrition product. It's in my store. Just go to needtobuildmuscle.com and click on fat burners. Cortisol, incredible product, great for fat loss, great to keep your endurance up. I found it to be a really legitimate option to taking GW, a really legitimate option to taking GW. I've always had a really big jug of coffee in the morning. Now I have a smaller jug of coffee, and instead I smash some cortisol along with my coffee. It supplies some good amounts of caffeine along with a whole plethora of other ingredients that are great for fat loss and increasing endurance. And cortisol is one that I really found has a really, really good place as just a way to boost my coffee. So I'm drinking about half the amount of coffee now that I used to. And I just make sure to take 7 to 8 cortisol capsules a day. And man, that's been a really, really good product. And number 5 is it's a product that just came into my store. It's called N2 Transderm. It's a topical testosterone boosting cream. Now, guys, N2 Transderm is going to increase the amount of testosterone in your system, not by making your testicles produce more, but by actually adding into your system precursors to testosterone that then your body can convert to testosterone. You apply the cream right on your shoulders, which is where the concentration of enzymes that we want to come in contact with the product. This is where they are: upper back, shoulders, and you could even use some under the arms, just below your armpit, if you're looking for mood enhancement. And man, is this a great, nice, strong product. You can stack it along with HC Generate. You can stack it along with SARMs. You could take it along with fat burners. I mean, you could take this product along with any cycle that you're on, and it's going to add additional anabolic hormones to your system. So those would be the top 5 products. Why am I not mentioning products from other brands? It's because if something was really that good, I would just make it under my brand. And so I have. There are a couple of other honorable mentions I like to say, which I don't sell, but I buy from other brands. One of them is psyllium husk. Psyllium husk is great source of fiber. We should all be having a couple of scoops of psyllium husk a day. Also, liquid chlorophyll. Liquid chlorophyll deodorizes your body, makes you smell minty fresh. It's just an incredible product for any of us guys that get a little sweaty and strong smelling from the gym. So a little bit of liquid chlorophyll every day. Man, does it freshen up your body. Man, does it remove any of those smells you might give out. Whey protein powder, just nice whey isolate powder, flavorless, that I like. I could just flavor myself on the spot, depending on what I'm trying to, what I want to achieve at that moment. If it's pre-workout and I want some calories, some carbs, I'll just throw some fruit in there with it, with the whey isolate and milk. I mean, it's just, you could just flavor any way you want. So that one's also a good mention. And that's about it, guys. I mean, look, we sell about 20 SKUs, close to 20 SKUs in my store right now. And they're all products that are designed to be taken along with steroids to enhance the effects you get from the steroids you're taking now. So you get more out of it without having to go to higher doses. And also to help deal with some of the toxicity that we've always had from steroids. And I've made them into products, guys, after all these years of using them for myself and consultation clients and bros on the forums. We've got a good lineup, and those would be the top 5 that I would use.
All right. Yeah, those are excellent products. N2BM. I've been a customer of N2BM for at least 12 years, maybe 13 years. I think from the very start. I think N2BM's been around, 14 years now, right?
Well, we got started in 2007 selling protein bars that you could make at home.
Yeah.
It's been we've been up there about 15 years running along. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, guys, check it out, n2bm.com. And they're.
And you know what, guys, we've stayed really small. We've stayed just a pop shop. I don't want to go mainstream and do shows and booths and sponsor athletes and all that jazz. It's just not me. I like to just have the small brand for hardcore users, hardcore steroid guys that like to get on the phone with me every other order and just shoot the shit 15, 20 minutes about steroids. I do that with a few of my guys every day that I can, and the guys reach out to me, do the podcast, just provide real information and sell the products basically on the science of what they're supposed to do and on guys believing in me that I put these together for the steroid user, for you to get the best results you can get on these compounds without compromising your health and without having to use too much of them. I mean, you throw N2-Slin into any cutting cycle, you don't need to add in a lot of other crazy stuff. You'll get lean. I mean, you'll fucking notice it. So, my products just kind of work that way. And I'm happy to just stay real small and stay just catering to the guys that are very dedicated, hardcore users, and not, the more mainstream brands, they're pushing a promise. They don't really talk about their ingredients as much as the science. They're pushing promises. They're pushing, well-known people you admire, sports figures in front of you. That's how they're getting the sale. But I really like the just having a small company that caters to this hardcore group of guys, and they've kept me, online and alive for over a decade now, and hopefully they'll continue to keep me online and keep me alive for several more decades to come. We'll see.
All right, guys. So the next one we're going to talk about is I don't get sore from training, but still progress on lifts. Does this mean I don't train hard enough? So we're going to let you have first stab at this, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I mean, it's the harder you work out, the more your body gets used to it, gets used to dealing with lactic acid. We spoke about that a little bit earlier. Everything from your diaphragms to your lung tissue. I mean, your body gets primed for performance as you perform. Your body gets primed for performance as you perform. So that's about it. It doesn't mean you're just going to make more painless progress because you're pushing, but you'll continue to make progress. You're just at that point where your body is adjusted to the stress, is adjusted to the training. And that's about it. I mean, nothing much to say. Look, if you change your training program up somewhat, you'll begin to feel sore again once you are working the muscles and maybe little different angles, or touching up on muscle fibers that are maybe your current program is neglecting a little bit. You'll begin to feel sore again once you get into working out maybe your muscle in angles that you're not used to now. But once you've pat down a good routine and you're doing the same kind of exercises for chest every time, and you're running along the same kind of exercises for biceps every time, and tricep routine is the same one you've been doing for a little while, you just won't feel that pain anymore. It just kind of goes away, but you're still making progress. So that's all I have to say about that.
I think on this one, you got to remember what the objective of training is. Obviously, you go in there, you train yourself. Let's say you want to be a great ice skater. You go in there and you never skated before. You put on the ice skates, you go on the ice, and you're like struggling. You try to skate around one time and you fall on your ass. Then you get up, you try to go around again, you fall on your ass. You get up, you go around, you fall on your ass. And then you're like, okay, next time you go, you're able to make it around a couple times before you fall on your ass, and so on. So each time you go, you improve and you push yourself, and you are doing it the right way. You're training, you're training the right way. You're doing whatever the proper thing, the proper way to become a better ice skater is. And then over time, based on your genetics, you may become a great ice skater. You may never be a great ice skater. You may just be average. But the point is, you're training your body. Your body has body memory involved. And that's why we weight train the same way. So when you weight train and your body gets shocked, it's going to spit out a lot of inflammation to react to that. And it's going to cause that soreness to happen. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting in a good workout just because you get sore. Soreness is one of those things where a lot of times if you change your workout and it's even less intense, you'll be sore, so it's just your body's reaction. So as you get more conditioned, you'll get sore less and less and less. But if you were to change your workout, change things around and really shock your body, you'll notice, oh my God, I get stressed. So that's just your body reacting to what you're doing. So, at the end of the day, I would say, this is one of these things. It's not like a black and white answer. It just depends on what you're doing. But the bottom line is, it's one of those things where you progress over time. You're going to progress, you're going to progress, you're going to progress. As long as you're progressing, then you're doing something right. But I mean, it's going to come to a point when you get old enough that you're not going to be able to progress anymore. And then you're going to have to change your mentality to, well, I just want to maintain. I want to maintain. I want to still look good. You know, it's not going to just keep being like a linear improvement throughout time. So, yeah. So on soreness, what's the best way? Let's say you go get, you get in a workout and you get sore. I've tried everything over the years. The one thing that I believe in for soreness is sleep, good quality sleep. And if you can get in a really good solid 8 hours, and you can get in an hour or two nap, that can really put a dent in soreness. But I've tried everything: hot baths, cold baths, supplements, bathing in different concoctions, and eating a lot of food and eating carbs and eating protein and injecting B12 and taking steroids and taking SARMs and everything. I've tried everything. And nothing beats good quality sleep when it comes to conquering soreness. So that's what you got to do. If you're not getting good sleep, you're not going to recover, and your soreness is not going to go away as fast. So definitely work on the sleep for sure. So that's what we're going to talk about is, would you say it's advisable not to run an AI during an off season? In this, during an off season cycle. So this is another example of listening to what pro bodybuilders do and not using common sense, because a lot of times pro bodybuilders, they can do things and get away with it that a normal person can't. So this is an example of that, because a normal person, you run a bunch of steroids that aromatize and you don't use an AI, you're going to run into issues with estrogen. You're going to possibly get gynecomastia. You're going to get a lot of water retention. You're going to get bloat. You're going to have all the side effects associated with estrogenic side effects. So just because, hey, it's the off season, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay if I bloat in the off season. Well, is it okay if you get gynecomastia in the off season too? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So my answer to this is no. My answer to this is, I don't care if it's off season, in season, out season. I don't care what it is. Always keep your estrogen levels where they need to be, which is middle of the range. Keep it in the middle of the range, not too low, not too high, and that's the safest route. What are your final thoughts on this one, Rick?
I don't know. I mean, your estrogen shouldn't be high if you are not taking steroids. So I definitely think when it comes to taking an AI off season, I don't know. There's probably some other underlying problems that you need to worry about if you're taking an AI off season. I've had to do it at times. I had some estrogen rebound from taking Femara ages ago, and I had to then take, after having finished out my cycle with Femara, I had to then take months later take Arimistane because of an estrogen bounce. And I wasn't on steroids, hadn't been on steroids for a while, but I mean, it's just, you shouldn't have to. You might have other issues at play if you're thinking, or if you're having high estrogen issues where you're not taking steroids. Maybe if you're an older guy, you might have higher estrogen, but a young man, there might be other things at play. And I don't think we have enough time in one podcast to cover all the possibilities and the treatment options, but it's definitely not healthy. What do you think about that, Steve?
Yeah, like I said, I don't agree with letting your estrogen. There's other risks, by the way, of letting your estrogen go out of control. Cancer. It's like lighting a match to cancer in your body. High estrogen.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're not taking steroids and your estrogen is high, and you're not on steroids, there might be other problems. Yeah, you might have other issues, and we should probably dedicate just a whole podcast to that, Steve. Let's remember that. What to do if you have high estrogen issues and you're not on steroids, or you've been on steroids at some time and now you did your PCT and now months later you're having a rebound. Something think it's a interesting one to do because there's a lot of different possibilities to explore, a lot of different things to look at in the blood work to really get to the bottom of it all. And I would treat the core problem before just throwing meds at it for the short term, my opinion.
All right, so that sums it up, guys. 6 great topics. This is another episode of Evolutionary Q&A, episode 459. I'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, Gas.
Guys, this is the required legal disclaimer. We are only sharing our experience from years of steroid use. We are not doctors, and none of what we say should be regarded as medical advice. Always check with your doctor before taking any drugs or starting any training program.